If you guys are trying to take your training to the next level and you want to increase your speed, your power, your conditioning, then you got to check out Phil Daru's 8-week heavy hitter boxing program. I'm telling you guys right now, there's no joke.
Hi, it's Winnie. You're watching Don Shea Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So the Crusher, Sergey Kovalev, a couple years ago, he was accused of breaking a woman's nose and attacking her dog. Sergey, he was charged for the crime, and today he was sentenced. So the Crusher, he pled guilty to breaking this woman's nose, and he was sentenced to 3 years probation, and he was charged with a misdemeanor. Now, so there's no confusion. This didn't happen in Russia. This happened in America. This attack, it happened in Big Bear, California. This is where Sergey broke this woman's nose. Guys, the truth will always come to light. And the truth I'm talking about in this situation is the exposing of the obvious racial double standards that exist. You always hear me tell you guys, boxing is based on race, nationality, and pride, in that order. And all of the racism that happens in boxing is only a microcosm of what happens outside of boxing. This story just showed us firsthand how far that hope insurance goes when you have the complexion for the protection. Floyd Mayweather, who was charged for hitting his ex-girlfriend, he also pled guilty to a misdemeanor, but they gave him 3 months in jail instead of 3 years probation. Two people doing the exact same thing, but yet two different results. I first read this article last night for me, because it's where I'm at, it's morning time right now. So I first read this article last night and then I went to sleep. I said, I'm gonna do a video on it when I wake up. Before I went to sleep, I said, let me just look at the comments to just see how these racists are trying to defend Sergey Kovalev. Because I'm gonna tell you, any person that will try to defend these racial double standards are no different than the overt racists. So I started reading the comments, and to no one's surprise, they were of course defending Sergey Kovalev. You didn't see none of the type of comments that they were sending when it came to Floyd Mayweather, right? When it came to Sergey Kovalev, they were defending him. Matter of fact, there were some comments where they were blaming this on the woman. They said she just wanted money. Oh, she was just trying to get money out of Sergey Kovalev, which is coincidentally the same thing they did when Dog the Bounty Hunter got caught being a racist on a recorded phone call. You guys remember Dog the Bounty Hunter had that reality TV show on A&E? Well, he was on the phone with his son. Apparently his son had a black girlfriend that he was in love with. And this man, Dog the Bounty Hunter, was such a racist that he gave his son an ultimatum. He said, you either get rid of that N-word, and he kept calling her that the whole conversation. You either get rid of that N-word or you give up this job of working with me. His son is on the phone crying, and he's constantly telling his son, get rid of that N-word. You're not going to be working with me if you're with that N-word. You see, guys, racism comes in categories, like a hurricane. You got category 1 all the way up to category 5. And I'm going to tell you, usually racist men, they don't mind their sons dating a black woman. But what they will not usually tolerate is their daughter dating a black man. That's usually where a category 3 or category 4 racist will draw the line. But it takes a category 5 racist to not even allow his son to date a black woman. I mean, even the racist Donald Sterling dated black women, but had the nerve to not want his black woman inviting her black friends to his NBA games. As confusing as that sounds, right? So we've seen the double standards with Floyd Mayweather when he fought against Conor McGregor, and then when the talks of Manny Pacquiao fighting Conor McGregor took place. We've seen the dichotomy. All of a sudden, it wasn't that bad of an idea when Manny Pacquiao, or when people thought Manny was going to fight Conor next. All of a sudden, it was a great thing for Manny because he stood to make so much money. But the truth is, with Mayweather, the reason why they despised that fight, they didn't want to see it, is because they knew that it was most likely going to be a black man beating the most famous white man in the UFC at the time. They couldn't stomach even thinking about that idea. This is the same reason why they didn't want to see Floyd Mayweather fight Manny Pacquiao, because they felt deep down Floyd Mayweather is a better fighter than Manny Pacquiao, and he's going to win that fight. That's why they had to start making all these built-in excuses of how the fight is going to play out once the fight was officially announced. And as I tell you, the truth always comes out because they tried to use an age excuse. First of all, Floyd Mayweather was older than Manny Pacquiao, but on top of that, after Manny Pacquiao lost to Floyd Mayweather, he turns around and he puts on his best performance in the third fight against Tim Bradley, which the commentator said, wow, Manny Pacquiao has turned back the hands of time. And then 5 years later, after that fight, he beats the 30-year-old champion, Keith one-time Thurman. Looking the same way he did when he fought against Tim Bradley. Hell, looking the same way he did when he fought against Floyd Mayweather. The only difference is he was in there with a better fighter when he fought against Floyd Mayweather than Keith Thurman. You guys remember a boxer by the name of Edwin Valero? Okay, this is what I want you to do. The next time you run into one of your boxing friends, or even if you want to call up your boxing friend, ask him this. What did you think about Edwin Valero? I can guarantee you the first thing they're going to say, oh man, he was a beast. He knocked out everybody, and man, he was about to beat Manny Pacquiao if it wasn't for all that stuff that happened, man. It's just a shame what happened to Edwin Valero. He was such a good fighter. I can guarantee you that's how the majority of people are going to react. The first thing they're going to talk about is how good of a fighter he was. They're going to completely negate the fact that this man, he murdered his wife. He used to beat his wife on a regular. He didn't just hit her one time. He used to beat his wife on a regular. Then eventually he just went overboard and he ended up killing her. And he was always high on drugs. He was high on drugs when he murdered his wife. But yet and still, these fans, at least these race fans, because that's what the majority of fans are, unfortunately. The majority of these boxing fans are actually race fans. These race fans will praise Edwin Valero more than they will Floyd Mayweather. We've all had a conversation with somebody at one point where they were saying, oh, you know, the reason why I don't like Floyd is because, you know, he beats women, he's a wife beater, etc., etc. I've never heard one single person say that when I mentioned Edwin Valero's name. I've never heard someone say, when I asked them, what did you think about Edwin Valero? Oh, you know, I really don't like him because, you know, not only is he a wife beater, but he's a wife murderer, right? I've never heard one single person say that. They always talk about how good he was and he was about to beat Manny Pacquiao. They always tie his name in with Manny Pacquiao because that was the one fighter Edwin Valero was aggressively calling out. The Edwin Valero story, the Sergey Kovalev story, the Conor McGregor stories, where he's beating up old men, he's beating up women. This all obviously proves that the hate towards Floyd Mayweather had absolutely nothing to do with his domestic case. It had nothing to do with certain things that he said that people didn't like. It had everything to do with his skin tone. And this is the reason why Al Haymon dealt with as much hate as Floyd Mayweather did. A man that has never done an interview. We don't know anything about Al Haymon. The only thing we know about Al Haymon is he is the most dominant force in the sport of boxing, and he's black. And the fighters that fight underneath his banner, they love him. Leo Santa Cruz named his son after Al. Abner Mares, he said going from Golden Boy to PBC or Al Haymon, it was like leaving a McDonald's job to work for a law firm. We've obviously heard how much Floyd Mayweather has thanked and praised Al, the Charlo brothers, Errol Spence. We've even seen some fighters try to leave Al and then come back apologizing and saying they made a mistake, like Vanes Martirosyan. He said he made a huge mistake listening to people getting in his ear. Apologized, wanted to come back and join the team again. These are the things that we know about Al Haymon. And yet this man is hated just as much as someone like Floyd Mayweather, who's the complete opposite of Al Haymon in terms of personality. I will continue to speak the truth. I will continue to expose the racism that exists. And racist people will continue to hate the fact that I am exposing them. This is how it's always been. That's never going to change, guys. You see, people always forget the most hated people in this country since day one. The most hated people in this country have always been black people, or some people that aren't even black, but the ones that expose the racism in the country. You know, people think, I always think of Martin Luther King and Muhammad Ali when I think of this point. Because racist people always try to use these names to alleviate their guilt, to justify their racism today in a certain sense. But the truth is, Martin Luther King, he was more hated than Louis Farrakhan or Al Sharpton today, just like Muhammad Ali was more hated than Floyd Mayweather is today. When it comes to Martin Luther King, they did a poll in the 60s of who the most hated man in America was. Martin Luther King came in at number 2. And this is over the KKK, which back in the 60s, the KKK was a huge organization because Martin Luther King, he was the first Black Lives Matter type of organization, or one of the first, I should say. Everything that they say about Black Lives Matter is word for word what they were saying about Martin Luther King and everyone that was marching alongside of him. The only difference from then and today is the date and the name of the organization. Have you guys ever wondered why Martin Luther King, the street, is only in black neighborhoods today? Because white people refuse to have that name or street in their communities. Even in 2020, they don't want to have Martin Luther King's name in their community. They don't want that street there. A guy that stood for racial equality, they don't want anything to do with that. You know how hard it was to make Martin Luther King a national holiday? Oh, it was hard. A lot of states opposed it. In Arizona, they say they were forced. They were forced to make it a holiday in their state. They weren't really forced. They just had two options. It was either accept the bill, the Martin Luther King holiday, or not get to host the Super Bowl in their state. And when it came to them not being able to host the Super Bowl, that's when they said, okay, we'll do whatever it takes to get that damn Super Bowl here. And the rest is history. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up and give these racists an opportunity to go out and defend the other racists, justify being a racist, try to alleviate the guilt by telling us how their favorite fighter is black. Maybe it's a fighter 50 years ago Maybe they're talking about Ali, maybe they're talking about Joe Louis, Mike Tyson, right? Some will even say, hey, well, Terrence Crawford is my favorite fighter. But yet they've never went on the internet defending Terrence Crawford, but they'll defend this Nazi Sergey Kovalev right now on this video. We know what time it is. Everyone already knows Sergey Kovalev is a racist. That's not a secret. And I remember when the Charlo brothers were fighting in Carson, and it was a crowd that was predominantly Mexican. Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev happened to be in attendance that night. So the camera panned to Andre Ward, and the crowd booed Andre Ward. And then the crowd panned to Sergey Kovalev, and they cheered for him. So we know what we're dealing with, and we know what time it is at the end of the day. That's all I got for now, and I'm on to the next one. Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. Basically, you will end up with a haircut shape up or an edge up. What they do is they tattoo small dots that look like hair follicles in the areas where you have lost your hair and then blend it with your existing hair. You can even choose what type of hairline you want, hard shape up or soft and natural finish. And to maintain it, all you gotta do is shave your hair every few days, which is something you already were probably doing anyway. So if you wanna get this hookup for my brothers out there in the UK and Europe, make sure you check out the Scalp This on Instagram. And for my brothers out there in the States, make sure you go ahead and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram. And when you go on their pages, you can see for yourself what these guys look like before. I mean, these guys are literally hair magicians. I've never seen anything like this before, but all I can tell you guys is this is a serious game changer for us men. So make sure you get in contact with Scalp This and Scalp Carolinas on Instagram.
Are you ready to take your striking game to the next level? Then you've got to get the Focus Ball. Dramatically improve footwork, timing, reflex, hand-eye coordination, head movement, and striking IQ. Lightweight and extremely portable, so you can train every time, everywhere with the Focus Ball.